welcome to this lesson which is on forming and solving quadratics. Now, I'm just going to give you a word of warning. This here is probably one of the hardest topics in GCSE. Loads of people struggle with it, and the reason that everybody struggles with it is because it brings in loads of different areas. You've also got to deal with quadratics. You've got to know all your areas. You've got to know probability for some of it. You need to know... what else do we need to know? Oh, Pythagoras comes up with this one. It just brings everything in, okay? I'm going to take it really slow, okay? Do make sure you're making notes on this because it is tricky. And remember, the only way to learn maths is to do it. So make sure you are having a go at each of these yourself, okay? So, first of all, we've got a trapezium, and it's saying, it's giving you the A, it's giving you the B, it's giving you the height, and it's asking you to form an equation and form a quadratic from what it's giving you. So, example 1, let's write this down. So here we've got our quadratic like so. Sorry, we've got our trapezium. We've got 3x minus 2. We've got x plus 5. I notice they've given it in brackets. We don't need those brackets. We might use them later. And it's given us our vertical height, which is equal to 2x minus 3. Okay. So, in this question here, it's only asking actually for the quadratic. I am going to go on and solve this using the quadratic formula in a second. But, first of all, we've got to form that equation. We know that it's 8x squared. Okay. And we've got to use this. So it's also given us that the area is equal to 133. Okay? So the first thing that makes this tricky is the fact that you need to know the area of a trapezium. So the area of a trapezium is equal to A plus B divided by 2 times by H. Okay? Where A is the top, B is the bottom, okay? And H is that vertical or perpendicular height. Okay? So, with all of these questions, what we need to do is you substitute everything in, you then simplify, and then you rearrange. Okay? So, let's sub in everything we know so far. So, the area is equal to 133. So, this area here is 133, which is equal to A plus B. Well, we know the top is A, the bottom is B. So, it's bracket A, which is x plus 5, plus b, which is the bottom, which is plus 3x minus 2, all divided by 2, all times by the vertical height, which in this case is 2x minus 3. So, a plus b divided by 2 times by h, and it's all equal to a. So the next thing that we need to do is to simplify this. So it's going to be 133 is equal to, now we're going to do this inside the bracket here first. So x plus 3x is 4x. 5 minus 2 is equal to plus 3. We're timesing by this. Now I don't need to write this times because it's a, we're doing it algebraically. So bracket 2x minus 3, like so. And divided by 2, now it was just this divided by 2, but we could do this all divided by 2. It wouldn't make too much difference, like there. Okay, so the first thing I've done is I've simplified inside this bracket. The next thing you need to do is get rid of this 2. So I'm timesing this to get rid of this 2. I'm timesing this left-hand side by 2, like so. So I end up with 266 is equal to bracket 4x plus 3 times by 2x minus 3. And we're nearly here now, actually. So the next stage is we need to expand this, and notice that when we're solving a quadratic, it always needs to be equal to 0. So we need to make this equal to 0 as well. So to expand this, you can use FOIL. I hate FOIL. I always prefer to use the grid method. You can use these lines, but I think they get a bit messy. I'm going to use the grid. I always think the grid's better with this. In the future, you'll do something which is called binomial theorem, and with those, the grid becomes really easy. So 2x times 4x is equal to 8x squared. 2x times by 3 is 6x. Minus 3 times by 4 is minus 12x. Minus 3 times by 3 is minus 9. We're going to bring these ones here together. So it's going to be 8x squared minus 6 plus 6 is minus 12, sorry. Plus 6 is minus 6x minus 9. So all of this, so 266 is equal to 8x squared minus 6x minus 9. Now we haven't quite finished just yet. Next thing we need to do is we need to subtract all of this. Okay, so I need to make it equal to 0 by minusing this 266, minusing the 266. If I take away 266 from that side, I end up with 0 is equal to 8x squared minus 6x, 9 minus 266. We can do that on a calculator if we want. So minus 9 minus 266 is equal to minus 275. Brilliant. And that is actually that question answered, because A is equal to negative 6 then. Okay, so notice here, I'll show you, this A here, 8x squared, I've got the 8x squared, plus AX, which is here, so plus, sorry, in case the minus 6 is the A, and the B is equal to minus 705. So this is the formula which we've got. Now, the next part of this is usually to go on and solve what this is and find out what X is. So I'm just going to do that really quickly. So A is equal to 8, B is equal to minus 6 bracket, and C is equal to minus 275, like so. I'm going to solve this using the quadratic formula, which is X is equal to minus B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. So X is equal to minus bracket minus 6 plus or minus the square root of minus 6 squared minus 4 times by A, which is 8, times by C, which is minus 275, all over 2 times by the 8. Okay, so here, let's sub that in. So fraction button first, fraction minus bracket minus 6 bracket plus the square root of bracket minus 6 bracket squared minus 4 times by 8 times by minus 275 all over 2 bracket 8 bracket. So we end up with 25 over 4. So X is equal to 6.25. And we can go back and find out what it is. And we can assume this is going to be negative. Delete. So minus. And it's equal to, yes, a minus 11 over 2. So we're not going to use that one. So the answer is X is equal to 6.25. Brilliant. So that's that first question done. Now the hardest part of this is substituting into here and simplifying all of that. Okay. So let's just check we got it right. So we said that A was minus 6 and B was equal to minus 775. Yeah, brilliant. So there we go. Minus 6 minus 275. Okay. So this next one here. So a rectangular lawn has a length of 3x and 2x and a width of 2x meters. The lawn has a path which is 1 meter on each of its sides. So it's like a path around here which is 1 meter. The total area of the lawn and the path is equal to 100 meters squared. Show that total area of the lawn and the path is 100. Show that 6x squared plus ax plus b is equal to 0. So this is very similar to the one we've just done. It's slightly different because we're dealing with a rectangle this time. So we've got our rectangle here. Remember to make sure you're getting this in your notes, because these are tricky questions, and the only way you're going to be able to learn this is to actually get them down. Okay, it's telling us that this height here is 2x. It's telling us to put that in there. It's telling us this width here is equal to 3x. It's telling us that this here is 1. It's telling us this here is 1. And it's telling us that this here is also 1. And it's telling us that the total area of this is equal to 100 meters squared. So, with this one here, okay, we're dealing with the area of a rectangle, okay, because this is a rectangle. How do I work out the area of a rectangle? Well, it's length times width. Now, the problem with this one is I don't know what the full length is, okay, but I can work it out. The full length there is going to be 1 plus 3x plus 1. Well, I can't do anything with that 3x because it's 3x, but I can add these ones together. So this total length here is 3x plus 2, okay? So that total width there is 3x plus 2. And then this one here, this one's actually a little bit easier because it's going to be 2x plus the 1. So this is going to be 2x plus 1. Now, that's your starting point. I think you should be able to do that yourself now because you know what the area formula of the area of a rectangle is, and that times that is equal to that. I'd suggest pausing and having a go yourself. I'm going to have a go at it in a second anyway. So now we've got to form our equation. So we know it's going to be length times width, and it's equal to that. So it's going to be 3x plus 2 times by 2x plus 1 is equal to 100. We expand this out. Again, I like to use the grid method. 3x plus 2, 2x plus 1. 2x plus 3x is 6x squared. 2x times 2 is 4x. 1 times 3 is 3x. Sorry, 1 times 3x is 3x. 1 times 2 is plus 2. So we bring these ones together, so we end up with 6x squared plus 7x plus 2. So all of this is 6x squared plus 7x plus 2, which is equal to 100. Perfect. Remember, we need to make it equal to 0, so I'm subtracting this 100. So minus 100 minus 100, we end up with, that's going to be equal to 0, which is what we want. So we've got 6x squared plus 7x minus 98. 2 minus 100 is minus 98. So in this case, A would be equal to the 7, and B would be equal to this minus 98. Again, I'm going to go on to solve this. So I'm going to use the quadratic formula. So A is equal to 6, B is equal to 7, and C is equal to minus 98. Notice this is a past paper question that has come up before, okay? It is tricky, but it has come up. It has come up towards the end of the paper, all right? So x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Let's substitute that in. So we end up with x is equal to minus bracket 7 plus or minus the square root of bracket 7 bracket squared minus 4 times by 6 times by minus 98 all over 2 times by this 6 here, using the quadratic formula. Okay. So then I'm going to substitute it in. So fraction button first. Minus bracket 7 bracket plus the square root of bracket 7 bracket squared minus 4 times by 6 times by negative 98 all over 2 times by 6, which gives me 7 over 2. X is equal to 7 over 2. Or go back, change that positive to a negative. We get x is equal to minus 4.6 recurring, so it can't be that one. So our answer here is the 7 over 2 here, like this one. So I've just worked out what x is. Absolutely perfect. So, that was question 2. We have got a few more questions on this. If you want to, maybe go to the end and have a go at some of the questions just on area if you want to, okay? Or you can just watch all the video and copy it all down and do it at the end. But either way, I would suggest that you do it. Okay, so here's our next one. I'm just going to do the first part of this one because I think that's probably the hardest part. And then I think you can probably use the quadratic formula yourself. Okay, so here we've got a square and a rectangle have the same area. Show that 36x squared plus ax plus b is equal to 0. So we've got, what example is this now? Example 3. So we've got a square, which is 6x minus 5, 6x minus 5. And we've got a rectangle, which is going to be x and 5. And we know that it's saying that these areas are the same. So I know that that times by that is equal to that times by that. And that's my starting point. So bracket 6 minus 5 times by this one, 6x minus 5, is equal to this one here, which is just 5 times by x, which is 5x. So this one actually isn't too bad. I'm going to use the grid method for this. Again, you can use whatever technique you want. I prefer the grid method. 6x minus 5. So 6x times 6x is 36x squared. 6x times by minus 5 is minus 30x. Minus 5 times by 6 is minus 30x. And minus 5 times by minus 5 is plus 25 there. We bring together these ones in the middle, so we end up with 36x squared. Minus 30, take away another 30, is minus 60x, plus the 25 at the end. So I end up with here 36x squared minus 60x plus 25 is equal to 5x. So then what I need to do, remember, I need to make it equal to 0, so I do that by minusing 5x, minusing 5x, so 36x squared. 60x minus 5x is equal to minus 65x plus 25 is now equal to, there we'll cancel 0. Okay, so A is equal to minus 65 and B is equal to the 25. Notice, and be really careful with it. They're asking for A and B here, but when you're using the quadratic formula, this is A and B. Okay, so A, B, C. All right, brilliant. That was question 3. So we've done some area ones now. Let's have a quick look at this triangle one. Okay. So this is very similar to the last one. The only difference is that it's triangles. Okay. You might want to pause and have a go at this one yourself. It's probably worth it. These are tough. Okay. I'll make it big for you just so you can see it first of all. Okay, I'm going to go through it now. So this is example 4. So it says the following triangles have the same area. Form an appropriate equation and hence determine the value of x. So I've actually got to work out what x is in this one. So I'm not just working out the formula. So here's my first triangle, like so. X plus 2 and x. Here's my other triangle. X minus 1 and 2x. Now, something that people will always forget is to divide by 2. So it's base times by height divided by 2. So it's x times by x plus 2 divided by 2. So it's going to be x times by x plus 2 divided by 2. So that's the area of this one. And remember, these areas are equal, so we can say that they are equal. Is equal to, I'm going to do this one first because this is going to be in the bracket. So 2x times by x minus 1 divided by 2. Now, you can't just cancel that, you can't just cancel that 2 there. You have to times the left-hand side by 2 and times the right-hand side by 2. And in fact, because there's a 2 on both sides of the equals, we can actually cancel this 2 here. Okay, but that's only because it's a divide by, all of it divided by 2 on both sides. You can't usually just divide by 2 if it was, let's say, like, if it was like that, you can't do it like this. It's only because it's all over 2 that you can do that, okay? So I end up with this bracket here and this bracket here. I'm going to expand them as I'm going through. So x times by x is x squared. X times by 2 is plus 2x is equal to 2x times by x is 2x squared. And 2x times by minus 1 is minus 2x. Okay, I'm going to take it all over to the left-hand side to keep the squared positive. Okay, so I'm going to minus x squared first, minus x squared first. Minus x squared from this side, it just cancels, so I'm just left with 2x is equal to minus x squared on this side. I'm just going to be left with x squared there, like so, minus 2x. Next thing I need to do is get rid of this 2x. So minus 2x minus 2x. So if I minus 2x from this side, it's equal to 0. Remember, I want to solve it using, if I want to solve it, I need to make it equal to 0. Is equal to x squared minus 4x. So you'll notice that there's no c on this, okay? And actually, you might have seen an example of this when we did solving using factorizing, okay? To do this, I put factorize into a single bracket. So 0 is equal to x bracket x minus 4. So I'm going to have two solutions here. I've got two things which times together to make 0. So either x is equal to 0 or x minus 4 is equal to 0. Okay, we know that x can't be equal to 0 because it means that there'd be no height. Okay, but I do want to add 4, so I end up with x is equal to 4 like so. Brilliant. That is tough, that is really tough. You've got to know area of a triangle. You've got to be able to form equations. You've got to be able to rearrange equations. You've got to be able to factorize into single bracket. You've got to be able to solve a single bracket. You've got to recognize that it's a quadratic. Okay, loads going on there. All right, we've got 2 more questions on this. Okay, then I'm going to let you have a go at some yourself. Now this next one says first by solving an appropriate equation, determine the value of x. So the first thing we notice is not area, okay, but I am using a right angle triangle. So what do I use when I'm dealing with a right angle triangle and I know all the sides? So that's what they're the kind of things that you need to be thinking about. So the answer to that is Pythagoras, okay? So example 5, here we've got our triangle like so. I've got x plus 1 and x plus 3 and 2x like so. Okay, so I know this is a right angle triangle, so I know it follows the equations a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, where this one is a, this one is b, and this one is c. So Pythagoras tells me that a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So a is this value, so it's going to be bracket x plus 1 all squared, plus this one here, which is x plus 3 all squared, is equal to this one, which is 2x squared. Notice I've put that in a bracket because some people will write it like this, 2x squared. And that's wrong, because it needs to be 2x times by 2x, which is actually 4x squared, but we'll talk about that in a second. So I've got to square that, I've got to square that, and I've also got to square that as well. So I'm going to use 2 grid methods. So the first one here, like so, which is x and 1, x and 1. Now, it's worth noting here, I might have skipped a little step there. This here, so the squared, you can't just square x and you can't just square 1. This squared means all of this squared. So it actually means x plus 1 times by x plus 1, in which case you have to use a grid or FOIL or whichever method you use. Plus this one here, which is also that times by itself, which is equal to, I'm going to keep that as 2x squared for now, and I'll come back to that in a second. So x times x is x squared, x times 1 is x times 1 is x times 1 is 1. Bring these together, I end up with x squared, x plus x is equal to 2x, plus the 1 there, like so. This one here, the next one, is x plus 3 and x plus 3. So x times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. 3 times x is 3x, the same. 3 times 3 is equal to plus 9. These are the ones I'm going to bring together. So it's going to be plus x squared plus 3x plus 3x is 6x plus 9 is equal to, so I've done this first one here, I've done this second one here, and the last stage is I need to square 2x. Now this means 2x times by 2x. So 2 times by 2 is 4, x times by x is x squared. Brilliant. That is tough. We haven't finished yet because we've still got to solve this. Remember, when we're solving a quadratic, we need to make equal to 0. So I'm going to simplify all of this first. So I can only bring the x squareds together. So x squared plus x squared is equal to 2x squared. 2x plus 6x is equal to plus 8x. 1 plus 9 is plus 10, okay, which is equal to 4x squared, like so. Then I need to get rid of this 4x squared. In fact, I'm going to take all of this to the right-hand side, okay? So, to keep it positive, so minus 2x squared, minus 2x squared, which gives me, they will cancel. So I'm going to have 8x plus 10 is equal to 4x squared, take away 2x squared is equal to 2x squared. And I need to take both of these over. I'm going to take them over at the same time. Minus 8x, minus 8x, minus 10, minus 10. 8x minus 8x is nothing. 10 minus 10 is nothing, so you just end up with 0, is equal to 2x squared minus 8x minus 10. Okay, we've nearly actually finished this. Now you could use the quadratic formula in this. I've actually spotted something that we can do. They're all divisible by 2. So I can actually divide all of this by 2. So divided by 2, I end up with 0 is equal to 2x divided by 2 is x squared, minus 8 divided by 2 is minus 4x, and this one here is minus 5. So actually I can factorise this one. So minus 5, it's going to be minus 5 plus 1, x minus 5, x plus 1. So I end up with two solutions. X is going to be equal to positive 5. X is going to be equal to minus 1. So it can't be minus 1, it must be 5. Now I have skipped a little step there, okay? I'm hoping you've watched the Factorizing Quadratics one to understand what I've done there, okay? That is really tough. Look at all that work. It's probably worth about 5 marks, that. 5 or 6 marks. Does come up in GCSE as well, okay? Does come up. So we've got one more question here, and this is a very common question that everybody always talks about. It's about probability, okay? So a bag contains X counters. 7 of them are blue. Sam takes a random counter from the bag and does not replace it. Jill then takes a counter from the bag. The probability that they both take a blue counter is 0.2. Form an equation. Now you might think to yourself, how do I form an equation out of that? Okay, so the first thing we need to think about is all the different steps and what the probability is on this. Now this is tough, okay? This is example 6. Again, it's worth getting this down in your book. These keep coming up, these questions, okay? And they're worth about 6 marks. So a bag contains X counters. So the total amount of counters is equal to X. 7 of the counters are blue. So the amount of blue is equal to 7 there. Okay? And it doesn't tell you what the rest of them are. Let's just check. No, it doesn't tell you what the colour of the other ones are, but we do know that 7 of them are blue. So Sam takes the first pick, does not replace it, and then Jill takes the second pick and does also not replace it. Now we know that if we're doing this, we multiply probabilities. So the probability of this and this happenings means that we multiply that probability by this probability. Okay? So with this one here, the probability of Sam taking one of these is 7 out of the total, which is x. The probability of Jill taking one. Now, remember that Sam's taking a blue here and Jill is taking a blue as well. So if Sam's taking a blue out, there's not going to be 7 blues left. There's going to be 6 blues left. So this is times by 6 over. Now we've also got to subtract 1 from this as well. Because if the total was x and I've taken 1 out, the new total is going to be x minus 1. So the probability of Sam picking a blue and Jill picking a blue, we also know is equal to the probability of 0.2. So now what we do is we multiply across this and then we can solve it. So 7 times by 6, just make sure I'm getting this right, 7 times by 6 is equal to 42 all over x times by x and x times by minus 1. X times by x is x squared. X times by negative 1 is negative x. And all of that is equal to 0.2. Okay. Now we need to times up by this. Now I'm going to take a little step here. Okay. Because this is a bit nasty. The fact that this is 0.2. Okay. And I do want to get rid of that. In fact, I'll times up first. So to get rid of all of this, I'm timesing all of this right hand side by the times by x squared minus x. Okay, so that will get rid of that. I'm left with 42 is equal to 0.2 times by x squared minus x. Now, I can multiply this out, but then I'm going to get with horrible decimals. What I'm going to suggest that you do is instead of timesing it out first, because we want to solve this, I want to divide by this as well. So I'm going to divide by 0.2 and divide by 0.2. If I divide the right hand side by 0.2, I'm just left with x squared minus x. And if you notice, I've got 1x squared now, which is what I want in the question. Then on the right hand side, I've got to do 42 divided by 0.2, which is equal to 210. Okay. The last stage is that I need to make this equal to 0. So I'm going to take this away. So minus 210 minus 210. So 0 is equal to x squared minus x minus 210. They will cancel and then you will go on to solve that. That is tough, okay? There's been about 4 questions which have come up in the last few years based on that. This was from the IGCSE. There's one which was called Hannah's Sweets. These type of questions, when I was actually picking these questions, I think there was about 300 of them, okay? They will come up and they are tricky, all right? So let's have a go at some of these yourself, okay? I'll make this big for you so you can have a go at them. It might be worth going back and seeing some of the ones I've done so far. I've tried to keep it so that they're very similar to the questions I've just done, so you should be able to copy through and work through, okay? So there's those questions. Have a go at those. Okay, hopefully you've had a go at those. Try and mark those in green for me. Mark those in green. Notice that some of them you didn't have to solve. That first one, the second one, and number 5 as well. Okay. That is a tricky lesson. That is a tough lesson. You might have to go over this a few times. You might have to really stop and pause and think about it because it is tricky. Remember to make sure you're actually getting these down in your notes and make sure you are having a go at these because the only way to learn maths is to do it, okay? And make sure you are having a go at all of them, okay? Thank you for watching this video on solving quadratics and have a wonderful day.